Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu shehakol nibid. Hi, L'chaim, everybody. L'chaim Bracha. Cold winter days here in Montreal. So we need the warmth of everybody coming and joining. We need the warmth of learning, learning Chassidus. Excuse me. Hi, L'chaim Bracha. So the Maimer Bossi Lagani come to my garden, to my bridal chamber. God says, my sister, the bride. So the general avoida, general job description we have is to transform the sheker, the lies of the world, to be a home for God, a an abode for the divine. And that's done through Tzivuz Hashem, God's army. And God's army. What is God's army? What does it mean to be in the army? Well, two ideas here. Like Moses, who was a faithful servant, and even everything was simplistic. In other words, when you understand the core of something, so it's simple, and that leads a person to be able to have Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice, as someone in the army has self-sacrifice, right? You got to do what you got to do. And even more so, as the Jewish people are called children of Hashem, and a child will even have more sacrifice for their parents, and the metaphor here for one's father, right? Which is the metaphor for our Father in heaven, then a child has even more self-sacrifice because something the father is, or parents are incarcerated, child will do everything, right? Even put their lives into jeopardy to release the parents. That's the idea of even greater self-sacrifice. So this is our avodah, this is our divine service, to make a dwelling place for God, right? To make an abode, a mishkan. And this is because we are called Tzivus Hashem, God's army, because it means it needs to be done, just like someone who's in the army is ready to sacrifice. So we also have to be ready to sacrifice to make an abode for God in this world. Right? Now, he's going to give it, it's interesting that the metaphor that he's going to give is very, and wow, when you see that. But on before the metaphor that we go into, um, the so we understand someone who's fighting in a war. Of course, there's a literally self-sacrifice, putting your life on the line, right? which means that on a deeper level, it means you're putting, your life begins with your will. And here it means that you're putting your will aside to fulfill the will of God. That's what it means. That's the concept of Mesiras Nefesh. You're putting, any soldier in the army, not doing what they want. No, they're doing what they're needed for. Right. Now, here he goes with the metaphor different. I mean, he continues with the metaphor, not differently, but he continues. It gives metaphor very um, in the previous. Remember that this is the Rebbe's discourse explaining the previous Rebbe's discourse, the last discourse of the Rebbe of the previous Rebbe when he passed away, and it's the first discourse of our Rebbe. Okay, so he gives a metaphor of a physical king that when he's in battle, in order to have victory of the battle, he opens up all of the treasures, right? Whatever it takes, right? He's opening up the treasure chest, if you will, of the valuables and the most valuables, things that have been hidden and concealed from all eye. Right. Think about it, it's an ongoing battle, and now he needs monies on a very simple physical level, right? He needs monies for more armament. So the king, at one point, is dipping into his treasures because what's worth the treasure if he's defeated in the battle? Nothing. So he's ready to use the treasures in order to win the battle. And some of those treasures are treasures that no one has ever seen, right? Like the right, treasures that no one has seen. Um, so in the term of, it's called bizbuz ha'oitzres. It's the, how do you translate that in English? The There's a right English word that's not coming to me. L'chai. But, like, okay, whatever. And uh, what's the king doing? He's going into his, you know, the chest of the valuables of an inheritance that he has from his father, the king, his father before him, going back generations of great wealth. Sometimes, when you go to battle, you've got to dip into that, right? And who are you giving it to? Who's getting that? The little simple soldier on the front line. So he has more bullets to use in his battle. Or he has a new, a gun that he can fight with, right? Now, even though the the giving of that ammunition, right, that the wealth is used of the king to purchase that ammunition, that firepower, right, is given through you know, from the general to the, from the captain to the simple private who's on the front lines, right? But in the end, who's it meant for? Is it meant for the general? No, that's meant for the simple private who's on the front line waging the battle, right? So that's the metaphor. Now let's take this. What does this mean, right? When we speak about the king, we're speaking about God, right? And he has treasures that he's splurging, right? He's splurging those pleasures, I mean, treasures rather, treasures that the eye never saw before. And now there's a splurge on it in order that who should get, right? What's God's pleasure? A treasure, not pleasure. What do you think his treasure is? That he's splurging and giving to those who are in his army. Anybody have a thought on that? What's the treasure that God is splurging? And when there's a battle and we're in his army, and we're the foot soldier on the front line, what is it that he's splurging to make sure that the simple foot soldier should have? No one's answering me. Oh,
Torah.
okay, good. Torah. Anybody else thought? Leba, Davida, Andrew, Michael, Ahmed, Tim, Trisha, McCoy, and anybody and everyone else. Huh? So pretty close, Diane. Thank you. Um, but Yireh Shamayim, which means the fear of heaven, meaning the presence of God. It's pretty, wow. Well, what do you mean the present? Why that? Because heaven, everything is in the hands of heaven, except for the fear of heaven. Everything is in the hands of God, right? Oh, Shimon Leib. I'm impressed.
Morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. Everybody say good morning to Shimon Leib. Everything is in the hands of heaven, except for the fear of heaven, meaning moral prerogative, making moral choice. And on a deeper level, yeah, to make proper moral choice, right? That's in our hands, and that's where we have freedom of choice. In other words, whatever, happens to an individual, whatever your day brings you, that's in the hands of heaven. How you respond to it is a moral prerogative that you have, moral choice that you have. So that is the oitzer, that is the treasure from heaven that God gives those who are in God's army, is that when you're fighting the battle of dealing with darkness of the world, the sheker, right, the lies of the world, that you can make the right moral choice. And you can make from that a dwelling place for God instead of living a lie. In other words, we're going to fulfill our purpose as being that foot soldier. How powerful and unbelievable is that? How unreal is that? Most people think, right, that, I'm a foot soldier, so what's the king going to give me? What's heaven going to give me? I'll get a day off, go back to see my family. I'll get a big reward afterwards because, I listened to my commander and did what I got to do. In other words, the consequence of, the reward. So here you're getting a reward. What's the reward? That you're going to be able to have moral clarity in a time, in a place where there isn't moral clarity, right? In other words, in a battle, right? Battle in life, survival, like take it on a simple level of a soldier, right? Literal survival. Take it in spiritual terms, you know, in a dark world over here. So there's one survival that we are, um, you know, trying to keep our nose above water emotionally, um, materially, if you're struggling materially, or whatever way and manner that you're struggling, to keep your, no, that's all from heaven. That's not a gift. God controls that. And we know that. But the gift that's given to us, that if we're in God's army, is God's presence in the battle of the darkness of the world. That darkness, that lie, that darkness is a lie. Because really, it's the light of God that is animating everything, giving life to everything. So that we're given that in order that we could have moral clarity to make from the darkness, the lie of the world, into an abode of godliness, of the divine, a home for God. Wow, I'm just like, that's something to live with. All right, folks, we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Something to really live with,
Yes.
this notion.